To the Retro21 Studios podcast. I'm your host, M Squared. Today, I'm joined with George Earle, Chief Growth Officer at Praxie. How are you doing today, George?
Pretty good.
Welcome back. George and I had a podcast in a not too distant past, and you walked us through Praxie. How about we start out with a quick rundown of Praxie, what you guys are all about. Tell us about your role for those who may not have caught the first podcast.
Sure. We are an enterprise cloud company focusing on small to medium-sized businesses in manufacturing, healthcare, retail, anything that has an operational element. We have 140 different applications on top of a very unique platform. AI is a very important module that has been built into the system recently. We use it in a very integral way, but it also can be opted out of. So we have applications that are AI and applications that are not AI. And we support many different types of business processes, from improvements to order to cash to supply chain to project management, change management, a lot of processes that an executive team focuses on, strategy and vision and innovation management. And our key area of competitiveness is that we can take people from a vision all the way through operating at the manufacturing line or operations area and not have any data discontinuity. All of that information is linked to each other. And we do that in a very synergistic way that architecturally supports what and how AI interacts with us. And the other unique position is we intend to use AI as an intelligent empowerment of human beings, not a technically replacement of human beings.
Excellent. That's great to hear. George, one of the areas I wanted to focus on is around supply chain. So if we go back a year or two, it was all about COVID and implications of supply chain. So we're in a new era. And one of the areas as I was going through your application, some of the offerings was around forecasting. And I just want to put two and two together. Like if I'm a manufacturer, how can I use those cool AI tools to help get a better view of the world and help my organization stay above water in this uncertain climate?
Sure. Let's treat those two things that are happening as what's called exogenous events. It doesn't really matter what drives those events, but what's important is how does your supply chain, your connections, your relationships, your transportation systems, your distribution of inventory, how is that mapped out to deal with these events? I actually started working on forecasted inventory a long time ago, and 1990 something, we'll leave it as that ambiguous.
You're reaching back there, George.
Yeah. At the time, the problem space was the same thing. And the founder of this technical company in Silicon Valley used to posit this in front of potential prospects. He said, the logistics industry fights for improvements that are measured in a penny per case. We're going to put $1 on the table. It was a very dramatic way of talking about a 100-fold increase. Now, what was going to cause that? And it doesn't really matter whether it's today or 30 or 40 years ago. The premise is still the same. Forecasting inventory allows you to reduce inventory. There are some famous, well-known companies out there that run their company from almost from a single metric. One of them is case fill rate. Mm-hmm. And what that means is somebody calls you up, hey, I call you up and I say, I want to buy a ton of paper, just paper for my printer. If you say, I don't have a ton, if you say anything less then you can sell me a ton of paper, then your case fill rate will be less than 100%. If you can say you can supply me with a ton of paper, then it's 100%. If you say you can supply me with 90 tons instead of 100 tons, then your case fill rate is 90. If you run your whole company to have the highest fill rate percentage, let's say 99.9, you are telling the company from engineering to purchasing to supply chain to marketing and sales, we never want to lose an order. So It's amazing how a metric can drive the whole process all the way through. So now let's go back to my forecast inventory experience. There was an industry that focuses on that, and they run the same way. They keep 90 days worth of inventory. And part of that is to deal with these exigent events. You have to be big enough to buy 90 days supply of every part, every stock keeping unit that you sell in your store. So the more stock keeping units numbers you have, the more stores you have, that's millions, tens of millions of dollars worth of inventory.
Right.
Now, depending on what the article is, whether it's a tomato or a stapler, you're able to do that. You can't store 90 days worth of tomatoes. Nobody's going to eat the 90-day-old tomato. A stapler, that's 90 days old, not a big deal. So not only are the events that everyone is paying attention to now, tariffs, and a couple of years ago was the pandemic, but the ability to store something for 90 days has a very big impact on people's finances. Loss increases if it's a consumable or fragile item. The size of the unit, is it a paper towel or is it a stapler, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you want 90 days worth of paper towels, you better have a lot of warehouse space.
Right.
So all those dynamics play into how you design your supply chain, and the visibility that people focus on sometimes in the software industry is to allow human beings to be able to assess my use of capital versus loss of sales.
George, you mentioned an interesting scenario, and that's the size of the product. Would these companies say they've maxed out their space, but their math is telling them, like, look, you need to pull in as much of this product or inventory as possible? So would they release space? How would that work out?
It's a very good example. The answer is you will distribute inventory in many places. So let me explain that a little bit more. When you buy something from a company, the minute you decide you want an order, they will allot you inventory. Now, that inventory can be in lots of physical locations between the shipper's location and your destination. And so visualize this, that as soon as I place an order, the orders products that are allocated to you that are sitting in the supplier's warehouse can be counted as your inventory. So that means if the supplier, let's say, is in Kansas where land is cheap, you could probably buy ahead of time and have the supplier store it for you. If land is cheaper in the supplier's location, then they will say, we'll store it for you. It's bought, nobody can touch it. So you feed from that over time. And in the company I worked for a long time, we created another type of order called a release order. So I had paid for it, you stored it, and then I said, I want you to release it to me now. So I would then send you a document. It looks like a purchase order, and except it would be a release order because I've already paid for it. So I'm just saying, send me 10 cases. I may have 100 cases stored. I will send me 10 cases. And then it gets on a truck. Now, trucks are actually part of the supply chain. And as trucks are moving across the United States, you can count on that inventory. So one thing that happens, I live in Texas, is when there's a hurricane coming, this sort of thing happens. The supply chain, the people who have to feed us, they will say, push all the orders that we would have spread out over 3 months or 2 months, push 1 month of that to me now. So all of a sudden, a lot of this inventory will end up on trucks. And they may be coming from different parts of the country, and they may be arriving at different times. And if you have the visualization to track, okay, one's coming from Washington State, another one is coming from Oklahoma, another one's coming from Maine, or another one's on a ship from overseas, which has maybe a 2 or 3 month lead time, you can then distribute what you're going to have available to you during and after the hurricane, according to the temporal and time location of your inventory, not just the physical location. So you don't have to have your own distribution center to hold everything. The trucking or the train or the ship is holding part of your inventory, as well as the supplier can be holding inventory. And if you time all that, you should have enough water for everybody when we're in the middle of a hurricane.
Is that MRP, material requirements planning? The other is going back to the lean days with just-in-time inventory.
So Lean and just in time are appropriate in lots of flows, as people will use the term generally, but it can be problematic. Like I said, if I'm making a car and all the parts of a car, 4,000 whatever parts of a car, are static, they're not going to rot. You're not at the end of a life cycle where you're changing over the line to a new model year. Then the constant flow of inventory is great because you keep less product, less inventory at your site. You can make changes, or you can have orders from individual car owners be assigned to a new build pretty quickly. It doesn't work for a lot of things, because just in time means any disruption means you can't build a car. So if you have just in time and the start switch is now stuck somewhere, you could have 99.9% of the car completed, but you can't finish any of the cars because you don't have enough start switches. So you have to be careful of that in assembly kinds of things. You mentioned the transformers. Some products are not high volume. They're low volume and high mix. And so you may need to only keep one or two, but some other order to cash processes are build to order, make to order. So they won't even be made until they get an order because they're very expensive, or they're particular to a particular design. So unless that entity that has a unique design needs more of those things, you'll never build it. You have the engineering on demand. Say they want one, they'll know what the lead time is, and then you can plan your parts availability to when the customer needs it to arrive. So just in time is appropriate for those products that are useful for that. And to the most part, the whole world kind of runs on a supply and demand timeline, that how much toilet paper we all use or how much milk we drink feeds eventually back to the manufacturer or the supplier, and how much they scale by how much that demand is feeding them. And what causes disruptions in that great plan are these events that show up. And then that's when it gets complicated, and the less visibility you have can cause you disruptions.
With so many variables, this just sounds like it's ripe, right? There's a fantastic opportunity for forecasting tools, AI, and predictability within that context. And there was a particular area in Praxie, and I'm just looking at my list right now. Streamline logistics with AI powered supply ops demand forecasting. That sounds dead center on what we're talking about. So, can you take us from that world where you described all these variables, all these possibilities with respect to supply chain? And here I am as a manufacturer trying to sift through all that. Do I need to hire a huge team? It sounds like there's something that you guys offer that could drive right into that equation.
So the AI game changer is this. Is it possible to have enough data scientists to sit around and think about all these variables? Yes. Can the most successful companies on the planet afford all of those people? Yes. There are 360,000, though, small and medium-sized businesses in the United States, and there are 50 to 150 or so people. They are not going to have a team of data scientists poring over lots of information and data to do the forecasting necessary. And even if you have all the data scientists, the multivariate analysis, depending on how many inputs you have, can get daunting, because they're creating mathematics that then get turned into software programs, and the human being is still having to think about that whole architecture. So as some of us who, everyone isn't playing with AI, but of the people who are playing around with AI, they're probably starting to realize that the AI brain can handle many more plates in the air, many more variables at the same time than your average person. Now you can have 10 people tackle many more variables, but then we're getting into the cost of a 10-person team all the time. Not that a human team can't do it, but then you start narrowing yourself as to who are the companies on the planet that can afford all that infrastructure. So part of what AI is going to be able to do is to allow your small and medium-sized company to handle supply chain disruption without possibly going out of business. I see a lot of those anecdotes on some of the news programs now, people who've ordered something they can afford from a foreign country, but then some of the taxing rules cause them to wait, because if they shipped it right now, they would have to pay almost the whole amount of money for that they paid for the product and have to pay in taxes. They never can make it up. So what's happening? The stock is sitting over in the country of origin. The company here can't sell anything because they don't have an inventory. So what AI allows you to do is to give the same problem to AI. If anyone's watching all the tests that we're giving AI, the physics test, the mathematical test, the legal test, I'll go back to my point earlier. There are 360,000 manufacturers who do not have a team of data scientists. They never will.
Right.
So either they're going to get better or they will stay the same. So AI is going to be able to help these companies that cannot afford the talent to allow their supply chains to get better, to allow the AI to help them create the algorithms that will help them forecast better. And that's what Praxie is focusing on.
That's awesome. And then from a pure economics perspective, we're talking supply and demand. So if those organizations become more efficient and more effective at providing supply, there's cost implications.
Yes, there's cost implications, and the owners know that they could be one quarter away from going out of business because either they can't sell anything, they can't take the story of the issues going on and relate it through their supply chain to be able to see what effect will this have if this goes away, because they do everything in spreadsheets. So AI allows the small and medium-sized market, and the medium-sized market can go up to 50 million, level up as a common term to the sophistication that $1 billion company has, $100 billion company has.
I want to leverage the power of AI and these forecasting tools so that I could compete more effectively with Praxie. Sounds like there would be some cost benefit in bringing this tool on board, and it could help my organization level up to some of the capabilities of larger organizations.
We have a general architecture for the applications in this area called AAA. It stands for access, to access data, analyze, to look at the information and then figure out something, and then the last A is act. So business intelligence software can help you access, and you have to decide how to analyze it, and you have to act. So our software allows you to access information because of the way our technology platform works. That's unique. The analysis is the application is going to do the analysis. So it understands the industry scope, and then it's going to give you the ability to act. So maybe you change your purchase order, or you change the pricing, because we have integrations into Oracle and SAP and other applications. So we're not just a pretty screen tool. We also allow you to act on what we're talking about. Now, in the somewhat technical mathematical sense, these kinds of supply chain issues are called resource constrained scheduling issues, or more formally, resource constrained project scheduling problem. And one of the examples of that kind of problem is FedEx has to go visit a bunch of apartments and houses in the area and deliver boxes. These are specialized problems that people will hire mathematical, very math-centric people to help them design. And again, we're back up into the almost ivory tower of who can afford to do that. Will FedEx afford it? Amazon can afford it. Does your local vegetable delivery company who operates in your town, because they have perishables, how sophisticated is their software? Can they handle any of these exigent events they come up with? Because of AI, because we know that this problem space is called RCPSP, we can go and get the algorithm created for you as an individual customer. The thing that AI is helping us do is there's two things. One is it's allowing small companies to have access to math excellence that they might not have had. Second thing is AI is dynamic.
Right.
Let's say you have a really smart data scientist, and he knows exactly, or she knows exactly, what model needs to be created. Let's say they're a great math person, but they are not a great computer science person. So they're not very good at writing a set of microservices that are run on top of a cloud. So they hire a software person, a very good software person. You pair them up, and now you have these two people doing that. Now, how many of those projects can they work on at once? One. AI with tooling can do more than one at once. And because it's an interactive dynamic system, you can give it a problem today that didn't have a variable, like maybe taxes that are applied at the border. You can add that to your prompt and it can produce an answer. And if you have an ability to operate on those changes, well, your applications can be updated and you can handle new scenarios as they come along, whereas your human team can only handle one at a time. So scaling is not just in the ability to give a small company access to models and math that they couldn't on their own afford, but also the ability to dynamically update models across different product lines, because there's another complication depending on what you make. One model will work if you're using trucks, but if you do less than trailer load, or you do multimodal where it's trains, trucks, and airplanes, models have to change. So that all that complexity is how AI can help. But you don't want to be sitting there with ChatGPT and typing all this stuff in and then getting a prompt and then trying to cut and paste and whatever.
So that last part of my query, as someone who's interested in using Praxie in this regard, what would my approach be? How would I go about doing that?
Go on to Praxie.com. There's a demo button there. You'll get an appointment link. And there are a couple of people that will, depending on the schedule tool, will find a slot for one of us and we'll be able to articulate. You'll be able to discuss with us your requirements and we'll be able to articulate what our solution looks like.
What's that span of time? What are you seeing out there for, say, a small business?
So we have a tagline, 10 times cheaper at 1/10 the cost. If you did a full stack implementation, you had all the staff, might take you weeks and months. You would do it days and weeks. There isn't a lot of structured data engineering and wrangling that we have to do. And that is two of the things that help us speed things up.
Excellent. This sounds really cool. What action should I be taking right now, especially from a forecasting perspective?
Forecasting software is also limited. If I have a situation where I'm a supplier and I get one part from one country and there is a financial reason why I can't access that, then yes, you need to have, just like we were doing in the pandemic, you need to have alternate suppliers. Now, to be honest, the reason why small and medium-sized companies don't have more than one supplier available is A, they don't have enough volume to spread between more than one supplier. They're trying to get discount volumes from one supplier. That's understandable. So let's say they did go out and source another supplier. Part of this problem, part of the solution is they have to contractually find a way to have access to their inventory when they need it. It may mean that they may need to use their forecasting capability to buy every once in a while from this local supplier so you can have a relationship with that person. The reason why applications are important is that the small and medium-sized business can't handle that much complexity. If they have, let's say, 40 parts and 5 suppliers, and you need a backup, now you have 10 suppliers. Your spreadsheet may not be able to handle that. And it sure as heck doesn't do any forecasting and accounting. You need access to the order flow as well. Other companies might want to figure out a CSV transformation way to get it into the relational database. We don't necessarily have to do that.
That's awesome. George, I remember from the prior podcast, you're going to provide a demo.
Sure. There's some not overly proprietary for our paid customer things that I can show you.
Awesome.
So let me bring a couple of things up.
All right.
This is what we call our AI-powered scheduler. So we're in the Start Here area. And what we do is upload data sets, then we input instructions into the schedule, and then we generate schedule. So we have some pre-prepared information. We'll walk you through this. So the first thing you do is you identify some business context. This is how you can tell that there's AI involved, because otherwise, if you write this information down, scheduling manager, day-to-day actions, creating and updating master production schedules and implementation of the trends that are going on in the industry, why would a regular program or an Excel spreadsheet need word phrases for things? So the second clue is describing the challenges you are facing, scheduling accuracy, and the ability to promise delivery time. That was what we were talking about earlier. So we'll move to our scheduler. So there's multiple tabs here. So first we take in sales data. Second, we take in additional context. And again, we're typing in the way humans think. So we're putting in seasonality, right? How would you bury this in a spreadsheet? Some people might have 4 versions of their spreadsheet: winter, spring, summer, and fall.
Right.
And those 4 spreadsheets might be heuristically designed, which is a fancy way of saying they guessed based on their experience in the industry as to how the supply chain changes during those 4 quarters. Promotional history, you get to describe that again in English sentences. Then you generate a demand plan. We're not going to do all that at the moment. So let's say that demand plan got generated here. Now, what do you add to it? Resource plan. How available are each of the departments? How many people do they have? Other constraints. Don't want any weekend scheduling. Nobody works on the weekend. We do a certain function only on Mondays. Here would be an opportunity to bring orders in. Big box store needs 100 of these in 2 days. So that order number might be selected here. Then there might be other orders that we're going to skip because we're going to do the big order. And then we add in some constraint data that will be a part of this file here. And then when we're done, all that information is present here. We hit generate schedule and we get to decide what that looks like. And then we have some visualizations of what that looks like. So we will dynamically create this table. So there's a bunch of information here: the part number, the work order, department end time. And we'll dynamically generate these visualizations here of what is my schedule going to look like at the different workstations I have in my manufacturing line. So these are the orders that are going to be at saw 1, the CNC machine 1, welding station. And so your team lead or your line manager then would use this schedule to distribute the work according to what the schedule is saying here. You can also look at specific orders and see how they would map out to which machine they're supposed to be at. And then lastly, you want to see, okay, what are my available to promise dates across all of my orders? And then in a future version, if somebody was interested, we could roll these numbers back into the ERP system or into the e-commerce system to say, okay, find the order in the e-commerce system that maps to this D24072 and put the delivery or the ship date in as December 4th.
Got it.
And of course, the benefit of this being an application is some constraint changes. Some exigent event happens. And I'm not going to change it here and do it dynamically because these can take some minutes. But all of a sudden we have a hurricane or a tax increase happens, and that can affect a lot of things. It may be that, as we were talking about, the taxes are too much and the available to promise date for one of these orders goes to January. But at least now you'll be getting some visibility. And if you pair this information with our supply chain control tower, which is in another application, now you can see the whole picture of your company and how individual activities are being affected.
So you go back in and you regenerate your forecast, right? Is it that simple?
Yes.
Yep.
Some of those fields that I had in enter boxes, enter the new information, you hit the buttons that I wasn't clicking, and then in real time it will do it immediately.
Got it.
The beauty of AI is human beings will do this too, but the AI is doing it in a few minutes, and the model is being adjusted in its internal brain, if you will. And so your model is dynamic now. Human models aren't very dynamic because the model was set up with the human input that I showed in the first couple of tabs. Describe some of the variables, describe some of the constraints. Okay, you don't want to do polishing on Monday. I could simply just add another clause to that sentence. I don't want polishing on Monday, and I don't want buffing on Tuesday. Okay, so in a few minutes, the model is going to take that new requirement into account and change all of the order schedules. If the human model didn't ever have polish or buffing in its model, now they have to design a new model. Take a while.
Is it possible to add in alerts?
Yes. Another part of our system, nice segue, is what we call maintenance management. It's also called total productive maintenance. So if there are machines, and we have a part of our capability that's predictive maintenance. So let's say there's a motor on there that's operating normally, then all of a sudden enough bearing fluid leaves one of the motors and it starts vibrating inconsistently. We have a system that will cause a trigger. The trigger will be an alert window. A human, or it can be automated, can start a non-conformance report. It can create a work order. But that event, if you notice on my schedule, it said CNC machine 1. Who knows there's a resource in there called CNC machine 1. Doesn't mean the maintenance side says CNC machine 1 is unavailable. We could cause a replanning to occur. Replanning, because of the machine, will cause available to promise dates to all change.
All change. Got it.
We have an alerting capability in our system. And if you want all of the order dates to be alerted if they change, now you can be triggered by this cascade of events, changing all the order dates. That can go to salespeople or to other people, or maybe to the customer saying, your order date, your delivery date has changed.
So I'm that small business owner. I know you guys, there's a demo, you help with setup, and I'm sure there's some sort of support. Is there ongoing training? Like, I'm an ops manager, I'm using this application. Obviously, I'll get more and more adept over time, but is there recurring training? How do I stay in tune with the latest and greatest and make sure that I'm efficiently and effectively using this application?
Yes. If you notice, the first tab that I touched on said start here. So we actually try to have, as a part of many of our applications, a novice start here button, which is a window panel that explains what is happening in this application, what you need, how it works. If you notice, while I was flowing through, I didn't have to touch my keyboard unless I wanted to type a sentence.
Right.
So it's very user interface friendly that I'm only using my mouse. And any application where you can use your mouse, you can usually use a touch screen.
Right.
You may notice that all of our applications are designed in a 16:9 format. So this would work on an iPad or
Excellent.
a tablet.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very user friendly. You can walk around in your factory. You don't have to be at your PC desk and be using a lot of complex multi-tab software.
Oh, that's awesome. George, I appreciate your time today. This was a great walkthrough of the application, and I look forward to you joining in the not too distant future to keep us aware of new changes in the application.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for joining the Retro21 Studios podcast. I'm your host, M Squared. Take care.